So who am I? My name is Chan-Dao, and I see some new faces. And basically, I'm part of what's called a traditional Shaolin lineage. So this goes back over 1,500 years from master to disciple. And you can call it a title. It's passed on pretty strictly. People can't just call themselves a disciple or a master and still be part of this traditional lineage. At least not formally so. So that way, in this way, the teachings can continue, and a lot of times it comes through verbal teachings. So my vision is to take the many complicated ideas from things like the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and many other teachings that is part of what we call the Zen wisdom or Zen philosophy, to make it current and use more common examples so that people can better understand the teachings. Because what I've found is that a lot of the textbooks and the way that people are currently teaching similar ideas, it's too profound, too vague, not very clear and concrete in the examples. And what I really like to do is bring in my own examples, because I live like you. Although you can certainly say in the last 10 years, my life is very different than most people. But then I can still bridge the gap from my previous experiences that I'm sure that almost everybody will experience. And this way we can humble ourselves, more likely to accept the teachings, which I'll never say are precise or true or is defined so definitively, but rather more loosely, so that you can then apply the teachings on your own and then determine if it's helpful or not. And when you apply it, that's what's going to help you to understand what the teaching is about, and then how to apply it in your life, and then get the benefit from it. And of course, the key benefit that we're always looking for is finding peace and happiness. At least once you get to a certain age and time in your life, say, I don't want to be sad anymore. I want to find peace. I don't want to suffer anymore. So that's what this workshop is about and what I'm here to do. Today's workshop is actually a follow-up of the previous workshop, which is about the spiritual path, finding your spiritual path, and through what we call the ego self. So some terminology that I might be using tonight might not make too much sense, or you might have a different idea about it. So if you find yourself a little bit confused, then just jump online, and there's lots of articles and blogs for the previous workshops. In particular, in that one, because it's related to tonight's workshop, I talked about the idea that suffering is largely caused by holes that we fall into. Sometimes we're not even aware of them, and sometimes we're stuck in it. We don't know how to get out of these holes, but it causes suffering. And then it delays what we call our spiritual journey. Well, one of the types of holes that we're really focusing on tonight is called Perceptual-Belief Holes. And what are these holes? Well, basically, any ideas that we strongly hold on to, that we really believe in, that makes us behave in a way that causes suffering either to ourselves or to other people. Okay? These are the perceptual belief holes. We're going to talk about it because, again, it prevents us from finding or being able to continue along our spiritual path, and it causes suffering. We need to find a way to avoid them, or at least understand how to get out of them. So we're going to explore that tonight. I'm going to be using plenty of examples, and you're going to hate apples after tonight, I'm sure. But apart from apples, we're going to bring about some other examples, and there's one in particular that a lot of people keep asking about, is that I want relationship advice. Okay, so I'm going to touch upon that, the very core of relationships. And it won't be very extensive, but it'll be enough for you to think about and then apply on your own with your relationships and to see if you can improve them. Tonight's topic is about perceptual illusions and how to overcome them. So in order to understand what a perceptual illusion is, we need to have a quick overview of perceptions and perceptual layers, which we did have a workshop dedicated for it. So once you like the idea of the perceptual layers, take the time to study it so to help you to even better understand the things that we talk about in tonight's workshop. Perceptual layers are basically ideas that we have, and you can think of them as ideas that get more and more complicated. It starts off the very, very basic, what we call the sense perceptions. These are things like what we can see and taste, smell, and hear, like the 5 senses, and touch. This gives us information. And with enough information, we can then start to describe objects. Right, for example, so here comes the example of the apple that we used last time. When we see something that is red and has a certain smell, maybe it tastes sweet, right? And then we can actually consume it and use it as nutrient. We then call it a red delicious apple, for example. And then we might find another apple that is more yellow or golden, and we call it golden delicious. So things get more and more complicated. As we learn things in life, we start developing these perceptual layers. And eventually, we start to evaluate, evaluative perceptual layers by comparing 2 different perceptual layers. So we can compare, for example, let's just talk about the one apple on its own. Maybe the red delicious. It's sweet, but how do we know that? Because, well, we must have had another apple or eaten something that was either not sweet, maybe it was bitter. Okay, once we have that, then we say, oh, we now can compare and say this apple is sweeter than this apple. Okay? Maybe this apple is sour and this is sweet. Okay? So these are called evaluative perceptual layers, and is the key for tonight's discussion. Because when you bite into a sour apple, and let's say you don't like sour, okay, let's assume that, then you'll say, ugh, this is nasty. I don't want to eat it. Okay? And it generates suffering if you're forced to eat it. So imagine you're a child and your parents said, okay, you're going to eat this apple, I don't care. And it's just really sour. You're forced to eat it. You'd be like, as a child, you'd be like crying, right? You know, why do I have to eat this? And you're forced to eat it anyway. You're suffering. Right? So it's the source of a lot of the suffering is this idea of evaluative perceptual layers, the idea of good apple versus a bad apple, a sweet apple which tastes delicious versus an apple that's sour, doesn't taste very good. And as we develop these evaluative perceptual layers, it's already getting more and more complicated because we're associating more and more perceptual layers together, and eventually it becomes abstract. Okay? So this is a quick summary. And then, so for example, we might have some, last time I brought up some examples like the honest person. Okay, it's very abstract. You know, maybe in your mind it's very clear and cut, but it's not, because the example I used last time was that, okay, well, if you think that you're an honest person, most people think they're honest, right? At least I hope so, right? But you must have told a lie before. So if you've told a lie before, are you still an honest person? What makes you an honest person now? Just because you suddenly decided to no longer lie? Does that now make you an honest person even though you told a lie yesterday? Okay? So these are the things to think about. Abstract perceptual layers get very, very complicated. And all these layers are all based on experience. We need to experience the world in order to develop these layers. Okay, so having said that, let's talk about perceptual illusions now. A perceptual illusion is the idea that any perceptual layer that we have to be fixed or true or real. That's what an illusion, perceptual illusion is. Okay, so I'm going to, and this is a very, very difficult teaching because in Heart Sutra and many other sutras, they try to teach this very idea. So I'm going to try to do my best to get you through this. So if you take a look at an apple, and I gave you an apple, and you're like, oh, it's your favorite apple. Say it's Red Delicious. Oh, I can't wait to eat this apple. You feel very hungry. You know, it smells so good, and it's nice, big, and perfectly round. The skin is perfectly red, and you're going to eat this. And I say, go ahead and take a bite into it. Oh, I can't wait. And then suddenly your teeth breaks. Turns out to be a fake apple, but it looked like it smelled like it. Okay, and then so the perceptual layer that is an apple that you can eat, is a good apple, suddenly got broken. That illusion just broke through. And of course, you learned it the hard way. Okay, as we often do in life, we learn things the hard way. So we go through life with so many perceptual illusions, we believe it to be real, but in fact, it's not. And then we pay a price for it, and then we suffer. Okay? So that's what a perceptual illusion is. So that's a very simple example because that is like a tangible thing, right? But I'm going to give you another example just to be sure you understand this point. Okay? So how many people like potato chips? Oh, a lot of people eat it. Okay. How many people believe that it's bad for you? Oh, we all believe it's true, right? But we eat it. Right? Is it bad or is it not bad? Okay, so I'm going to try to help you through this now. Okay? We're going to break through this perceptual illusion. Okay? How do we do this? Well, let's just try to understand chips, first of all, potato chips, that is, right? People will say it's bad for a number of reasons. For example, they say it's too much salt, too much saturated fats, okay, for example. Some people may say it's not even about that. It's because of the way that it's produced. It's because it's manufactured by a company. Some people just really hate corporations, right? Oh, it's manufactured by a corporation, it's bad. Some people might not like the fact that the way it's bagged in plastic or foil or whatever it is. Some people might not like the way it's transported and stored in the whole entire process of getting into your hands. Right? So how do we look at that? Well, as an illusion. Because when we start to try to dive into the idea that potato chips is bad, then we start to realize, actually, maybe it's not bad. You know, actually, potato chips contain essential nutrients for your body, like carbohydrates, like fats, like calcium, right? Like iron and salt. We need all these things. Okay, so if we can actually use the nutrients, is it now good or bad? Okay, so what actually makes it bad? So we start thinking about bad in terms of consumption of the potato chips. Then we start to realize if that's all you eat every single day and you eat a 200-gram bag of chips every single day and then you're no longer eating anything else, then your body will suffer. Okay? You're going to start to gain weight. You're not exercising, maybe. Okay? And this also affects your mental health. So maybe it's better to think not that potato chips are bad, but how you consume it in relation to your lifestyle is a better way of thinking about it. Are there examples of a lot of people who eat potato chips and are considered healthy and live long lives? Of course there are. So many. If you believe it's bad, suddenly you lose out on that delicious flavor and that taste. It feels good. So why is your body says, oh, I eat this. If people say it's bad, why does it taste so good? What's happening here? Okay, maybe you need the salt. That could be a good reason. Right? So you need to start thinking about maybe there is no idea that potato chips is good or bad. Okay? Why this affects things is that if you eliminate potato chips, now you can no longer enjoy it. But then the more, if you already think it's bad, and then that means you must think other things are bad, and more things are bad. So you end up with a whole list of things you can no longer eat. Or now if you eat it, now you feel bad. Now you're suffering because you mentally feel bad that you've eaten it. Right? Or if you're like me, you can have a whole bag of potato chips because then you go exercise. and you work it off. Your body needs nutrients. So thank you very much. You just fueled with all that fat and the chips and the carbohydrates, a nice low-level run for 20 minutes or whatever it's going to be. So your body can appreciate and use the energy. Okay? Chips are not poisonous. If there's things that's chemicals that your body can't consume, it chucks it out. That's the job of your kidneys, by the way. So don't worry about it. Okay? But where you do have to worry about, again, if you don't have much circulation, you're not expending your energy, and you're just eating chips, you're going to get yourself into trouble. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Now that you understand that you have evaluative perceptual layers that are actually illusions and how to break through them, do they actually cause suffering? Can it actually cause suffering? And it happens like this. There are two conditions that we often find ourselves making a decision on without even realizing it. The first is I am right. The second, others are wrong. Okay? It's constantly happening. For example, the internet even made this even more interesting because people read things on the internet and suddenly they're right because some guy said something online. Okay? Maybe that person wrote an article and sounded so official that you believe in it. And now you've learned, you've gained this evaluative perceptual layer from another source, but it's not from your own experience. But now you believe it to be true. Okay? So now it's kind of like walking around blind. Okay? Or you're narrowing your vision. You can't see very well. If you operate, on the other hand, by not as I am right and others are wrong, your life is suddenly very, very different. Okay? But I do understand a lot of people need to feel right because maybe they were oppressed when they're younger. People always told them they're wrong, so now they have to be right. So it creates like a certain mental condition that becomes very emotional in nature, and that's something we're going to talk about in a future workshop with holes that create through our emotions. Okay? And that's the tie-in to that. But getting back to this, I just want to bring a typical example because the more examples I can provide, the more it's going to make sense to you. So who here believes that cycling is good? Put up your hands. Is cycling good? Okay. So I'm going to break that illusion today. Okay? I'm going to break this illusion today. And that's how I'm going to do it. Right? Because everywhere you hear it says cycling is good because it's exercise, right? And it's giving you circulation. So when you are younger or maybe more fit, you're riding your bike and you are getting definitely a lot of circulation. And you say, wow, this is such a great, easy thing I can do. I can travel, explore things around the city or wherever on my bike. And so you start investing more and more time into it. And then you buy more and more expensive bikes so you can go faster maybe, make it a little bit easier for you to ride your bike, maybe better tires for grip or whatnot. And you're getting excited about it and you're getting stronger. You feel, oh, my legs are really strong. I feel healthy. I'm more alert. I'm getting good circulation. This is true. Okay, this is true. It's good exercise at the time. But then, one day, let me add one more thing because this is very important. Then you start making friends who also cycle, and now you're cycling with them. So you're kind of a little gang, and you go around cycling, enjoying this and whatnot. So it's very important to you, the idea of cycling. So you spend a lot of effort and time and money into cycling. 10 years later, your knee is hurting, and let's say you're 50 or 60 years old, right? Your knee starts to hurt. You go, oh, why is my knee hurting? I have to take a break from cycling, right? So, or you might say, I'm going to go cycling. It's just a little bit of pain. I'm going to keep cycling with my buddies. It makes me feel good. It's important for my health. I have to keep doing it. So you keep on cycling, and then suddenly your knee hurts so bad that you can't even cycle anymore. So you go see the doctor, and they say, there is a tear in your ligaments, or there's a tear in your meniscus, okay? Or maybe it's wearing down. You need rest, okay? So they say, how long do I have to rest, doctor? I said, at least 2 months. It's not very serious. It's only 2 months. I said, okay, fine. I'll wait those 2 months. So you wait out those 2 months. You gain some weight. There's nothing else to do. But you heal, and you're right back into cycling right away. You go, I'm going back to what I enjoy. It's what makes me healthy. Another year passes, and your knee's hurting again. This time it hurts really, really bad. So you go see the doctor, and he says, guess what? You've almost completely worn out your meniscus. You cannot ride again. In fact, you have problems walking even. So you're going to be on crutches or in a wheelchair until you get an operation. In fact, they have to put a synthetic cartilage in between your knees to help you. And your body may even reject it. So what's happened now? Now you're sad. You're 67 years old, and what are you going to fall back to? You can't even walk. Where are you going to get your exercise? Okay? So now your mental health starts to come down. So now I ask you at this point, imagine you're this person, is cycling still good or bad? What? So that's something for you to think about. Hopefully it'll help you break through this illusion that cycling is good. How do I think? I don't think cycling is good or bad. I don't think in that way. That's just not how my mind works. I don't have these illusions of fixed perceptual ideas. Or I can say, sometimes I do, but I catch them really fast. And I toss them out really, really quickly. We're human after all. It happens constantly. You just watch TV and suddenly you have all these evaluative perceptual layers in your mind just by watching TV. Or someone tells a story from something that they heard from something they heard from someone else, and suddenly you think it's true. Evaluative perceptual layers causes these illusions all the time. If cycling helps you to increase your circulation, then you do it. Right? But if you are so fixated that it's good, or maybe the best, some people think there's like a lot of cycling fanatics. Oh, it's the best, the only thing I ever do. Well, if you don't do anything else, then you have nothing to fall back to. Okay? But maybe I suggest the possibility that even more important to cycling is understanding how your joints work and how to be aware of how they feel and how to strengthen them, how to balance them. Okay? So it's kind of a bit of a plug for my Shaolin stretch therapy. As some of you know, you're going to try a bit of it tonight. But also, I will make this Shaolin stretch therapy video for free. It'll be like a 20-minute daily stretch therapy video. It will be available sometime by the end of the summer or early fall, because I feel it's just that important. It will teach you some very basic exercises that are hard to do and develop the right way of thinking about your joints. So then you can enjoy cycling even when you're 80 or 90 or whatever you want to do. You'll be able to still enjoy it in your way. Okay, so let me move on here now because this is quite a bit of a time. I do want to list some other ideas, because often you will think that you're right and other people are wrong, right? So for example, I'm going to list a couple of ideas. So if you suddenly have this reaction, no, that can't be true, okay? You don't like this idea, then take the time to think about it. Break through this illusion. We've gone through enough examples now. So for example, eating meat is good. Now if you're a vegetarian, you go, wow, no way, right? If I say eating meat is bad and you like eating meat, so no way, I need meat. Right? How can people be right and wrong at the same time? What's going on here? Right? So let me try a few more. Okay, so here we go. Eliminating carbohydrates from your diet is good. Okay, I'm taking examples that recent times, right? These are things that kind of circulate around. Okay, anything made of plastic is bad. Wearing clothing made of real fur is bad. Drinking 2 liters of water a day is good. Having a house is good. Having kids is good. Having a life partner is bad. Having a car is bad. Right? Having a particular sports team, being the best. Right? For example, if you're in Toronto, oh, Maple Leafs, right? The best. Okay? These are illusions, by the way. As you know, Leafs haven't won Stanley Cup since 1967. Okay? So even like paying taxes is bad or good. Like these are things that you constantly come across, and you need to think about it. These are all illusions. And when these illusions, and the more complex these illusions are, and the more complex they are, the more related to abstract and complex perceptual layers, the more likely it will cause suffering for you. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, and I want you to take the time to either think about some of these ideas that you have, evaluative perceptual layers, that is, or if you want to think about the next section that we're going to talk about, then the question is your current relationship with a partner, is it great or terrible? I want you to think about that. Okay, if you don't have one, or if you're not currently in one, think about in a previous relationship, okay? A partner type, romantic type of relationship. Now, if you've never been into one before, just think about a relationship with your parents or your siblings or something like that. Okay, it's still relevant. And I want you to think about whatever your decision is, whether it's great or bad. How did you derive at this idea? What I want to talk about, because I asked you to think about whether your current relationship with your partner is good or bad, or great or terrible. Okay? Because if you were already had the idea that your relationship isn't great, just might be one reason why you're here. Okay? So we're going to try to break through this illusion that your relationship with your partner is great, or your relationship with your partner is bad. We're going to break through this. And I'm going to tell you how I think. Okay? And that will help you to understand this, the idea, the Chan-Dao, the philosophy, and some of these really difficult things that are to teach and learn. So when we think about this one idea, it's very, very complicated, because let's just try to analyze what we're saying here. Okay? So we're saying, if I break it down to 3 different ideas, we're saying my relationship, right? Associating that with my partner, and then the idea of either great or terrible. Okay? So these are the 3, we call them high-level abstract perceptual layers that form this one overriding perceptual layer that your relationship is either good or bad, right? Now, if you break it down even further, we can put it into 5 main ideas. Okay? The first idea is my. Okay? We're going to explore this one. I'm going to put a little bit more effort on this than the other ones today. All right? The second one is the idea of a relationship. The third is the idea of a partner. And then the fourth and fifth are kind of related, is the ideas of great and the ideas of terrible. Okay? So let's dive into this to try to understand what's actually happening here. So the idea of my, we take it for granted. We use it everywhere, constantly, but we don't even realize it. Right? So where does the idea of my come from? First of all, it implies ownership. Okay? This is my microphone right here. Right? This is my incense. How dare you touch my incense, or take my incense, or light my incense for me, for example. Okay? This is my ownership. Where does it come from? One of the first things you own would be one of those things, the suckers that you put in your mouth. Right? What happens when you take away a sucker from a baby? They start to cry. This is mine. It's mine. Don't take it. I want it. I use it. It could be your own fingers. It doesn't have to be a sucker, but whatever it is, it's your natural instinct. As you start to understand this concept of my, it's already a very abstract perceptual layer, but you start to learn that you can acquire it. People give you things as a kid. Oh, it's mine now. Okay, don't take it. I want it, right? And as this continues to happen, you start to develop more attachment that it's yours. It's my. So if you try to break someone's idea of my, whatever it is, they're going to be upset. Right? But also, my means that maybe you can enjoy more. So I have more clothing. I have more toys. So you start to get greedy, for example. You say, I want more. I want more and more and more. Why should I give it away? Because I'm getting more for myself, right? If you come from a poor family, probably you're going to want more. It's going to be even more ingrained in you to have more. If you come from a wealthy family, probably you're encouraged to share, constantly sharing as a kid. Okay? It may not be true, but I know if I was wealthy, I had a kid, I would get them to share constantly. So they're less likely to hold so strongly the idea of my, because they have abundance. There's abundance, is really what it is. Okay? So that's the idea. And as you get older, you start to apply this to more and more abstract ideas. For example, I'll list a few: my life, my future, my relationship that we'll talk about, my partner, my personality, my goals, my luck. These are completely abstract ideas. Some people think they have bad luck. What the heck does that actually mean? When you think about it, where does that come from? All right? Maybe it's because people keep experiencing things that cause them to suffer. So I've got the worst luck, for example. Now they materialized this idea out of nowhere, and for them it's now real. But it's an illusion. When you see through it, you no longer feel that you have bad luck, even though you may continue to suffer. Two separate things. Okay? Two separate things. That now allows us to talk about the idea of my relationship. So similarly, if the first relationships you would have had would be what? Think along the same lines. It would be with who? Now it's with your parents, right? Or a caregiver, whoever that is. And maybe your siblings over time. And then now you have friends. So now the idea of a relationship is forming. And as you get older, you experience more. You gain more and more wisdom of what it means to have a relationship. Okay? What does it mean to have a good relationship with your mom or your dad versus a bad relationship? Okay? A lot of people have what they perceive as a bad relationship with their parents. Okay? It's an illusion. We have enough examples now. You can think about how to break through these illusions that we have. Okay? So that's where relationships come from, but then we extend this now, the relationship to your partner. Right? So here is really interesting. As I was contemplating about the idea of my partner, how often have you heard, either in a book or in a TV show or a movie, you're mine? Okay? How often have you heard that? Okay? So you get married, now you're mine. I own you. I've heard this over and over again. This is the worst mistake to make in a relationship, the worst. Okay? You don't own anybody. Okay? But you're so conditioned with your whole entire life, that now you're with somebody and now they are yours. Okay? This is what happens. It happens subconsciously. It happens automatically. Okay? The moment you associate with your partner and a relationship, now they have to have your approval in everything. They want to go meet their friends, they need your approval. Oh, how dare you go talk to your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend without telling me first? Okay? That's what happens when you start to own somebody. Okay? You want to try to control them now, right? That's what it implies. Ownership and control, they go hand in hand. I want to control this person. This is the worst thing you could ever do in your relationship, because the person will sense it immediately, and then you start butting heads immediately when you try to own each other or try to control each other. It just comes from this one idea of my partner. But you might also gain perspective about my partner and my relationships from many sources, right? Like TV and internet, books, for example. Your parents might give you advice. You might hear relationship advice at weddings, which is pretty common, right? Usually we say, oh, to the newlywed, here's my advice for a long-lasting relationship. Right? Mine would be, don't own each other. It's like that. Okay, it's like, what does that mean? Okay? So the last one, I said, was related, great or terrible. This is kind of interesting. This is touches upon the ideas of something called duality. So if you've never had a relationship before or a partner before, then you don't really have, and you haven't learned anything from anyone or an intern or anything like that, then you won't know whether your relationship is good or bad, correct? you will have no idea. But pop culture and books and movies and things that you observe from your friends' relationships, maybe your parents' relationships, starts to form idea of great or terrible. So for example, someone might say, it's very bad if you don't cook, okay? Because your job is to cook, for example. Just giving an example out there. And you say, why? Why is that the case? Well, look at my partner. He cooks for me all the time. He's eating delicious food every single day. And then the other person goes, wow, that doesn't happen in my relationship. So what's going to happen now? I'm going to feel bad because my relationship can't be good if you're getting someone who's cooking for you all the time. Maybe we're doing also doing all the housework for you and everything else, and you don't have to do anything. Okay? Or they don't have to do anything, but now you have to do everything to sustain your family or a couple or whatever it is. Okay? Now you're saying, oh, my relationship is terrible. Yours is good. Now you're comparing, right? It's evaluative perceptual layers. This is how you get yourself into trouble. The moment you start doing this and you start believing this, now you're going to be in trouble. Okay? So that's the value of it. And for example, let's say that you think you're so great. Your relationship is so great because, I'm going to use the same example, right? Your partner cooks for you. It's amazing. Just out of this world. Every day, everyone's taking care of you. It's amazing. But then you start to talk to your friends, and you discover all their partners do the same thing. So suddenly, it's no longer great. It's just normal. It's expected. Now, when your partner doesn't cook for you for one day, it's terrible. That's how it works. That's duality. Okay? The ideas of duality is like this. We create these illusions in our mind, and then we suffer from it because we create these evaluative perceptual layers. Okay? So if you just reflect upon your relationship with your partner, anytime that you think is good or bad, try to think back on this lesson. Okay? I'm going to help you through it later on in a different way as well. So what I want to do then is just kind of finish this section off, is to understand how it develops suffering. What happens is that, again, you create illusion by assuming that your evaluative perceptual layer is correct. That's always the first big mistake. I am right. Okay? Big mistake, okay? So as you know now. Number two, the idea that your evaluative perceptual layer is permanent. Once it's permanent, it's hard to change it. If you decide it in your relationship, it's really terrible because your partner isn't doing what you feel is fair, not doing the same level of housework, for example, okay? Because you decided that fairness is based upon this in your relationship. Okay? Then, if that person now does something, even just a small thing, you're not going to be happy because it's still terrible. Now the bar that person has to make up for all those years of not meeting the expectation, they have to do many, many years of doing it. Otherwise, you're not going to be happy. Okay? That's the idea of permanence. Thirdly, you're going to start creating resentment for yourself. Every time you experience something with your partner that further supports this evaluative perceptual layer that they're terrible. Oh, they didn't cook again. What's new, right? And it will create resentment for you. The feeling, emotional feelings start to add up in you. And then finally, it's a cycle that just keeps on going, and it escalates. And something called separation. You feel more separated from your partner as a result. Okay? That separation goes bigger and bigger, and it's getting harder and harder to put things back together. Okay? Soon you're drowning in this hole that you've created for yourself because you had this idea, this evaluative perceptual layer that you are so sure that you are right. What we want to try to do is try to break through the illusion of an abstract perceptual layer. It's very, very difficult to do. Because as we just saw, by exploring the top level, just the top level perceptual layers of the idea that your relationship with your partner is either good or bad or neither, then you will already know that there are many, many layers below that. It's so complicated. How do we just suddenly flip it and go, okay, it's neither good or bad anymore? How do we drop this evaluative perceptual layer from the abstract idea? Okay? How do we do that? It's a lot easier said than done, but there's a very systematic way that you can go about doing that. So, and then because I've already started this structure, that system really requires you to start with the top level and ask yourself, why do I have this idea of my and the idea of ownership, as we have just done? Okay? Why is there the idea of my relationship? Do I actually own any relationships? Okay? Where does that come from? You just have to ask the questions. Okay? Then why do you have the idea of, more concretely, the idea of owning a partner? Where does that come from? Okay? And then, of course, the ideas of good and bad. Where do those come from? So you'll notice that generally, the source of everything is just the events that you experience in life. That's where everything comes from. Your experience in life that help you get through a situation or fail to get through a situation, or maybe that you learn from some other resources. Okay? You need to figure out where it's coming from, because if you've learned it, it is definitely time to challenge it, because you didn't gain it from experience. Okay? So learning helps you to shortcut, but only to a certain point. So if you learned not to touch a vibrantly colored snake, okay, and then because it's dangerous, now in that example, you'll always be scared of a vibrantly colored snake. But if you challenge it and say, well, is it really? Why? How did I come with that? Why did that person tell me, probably your parents, somebody you learned on like National Geographic or some other source, why is it telling me to stay away from poison or from snakes that are vibrantly colored? Then you start to realize, oh, okay, it's because it could be poisonous. Oh, what makes it poisonous? Are there other ways to identify a poisonous snake? For example, you start thinking like this, and you go through many, many different layers to go through it, and you say, oh, okay, well, a vibrantly colored snake is not necessarily poisonous, but it'll probably save my life if my first reaction is to immediately stay away. Okay? For example, that's how you start thinking about it. So if you go back to the relationship idea, evaluative idea, then you can start to dive into all the ideas that make your relationship great or bad, and then start tossing them. Every single one you've got, just start throwing them out. Okay, I'm going to tell you how to do that in a moment. But here are some very common ones, right? Because I've actually experienced this myself when I wasn't as practiced with philosophy. I'm not saying these ones exactly mine, all right? But this is, all right? So just a bunch of them. It could be my previous partners, all right? I will be happy if my partner washes the dishes. These are the conditions that someone was talking about, right? It is unfair that I'm doing more housework than my partner. It's a common one. It is unfair that I'm doing less housework than my partner. It is not okay that I'm the only one contributing financially. My partner needs to do more housework. Okay, these are just different ways of thinking about similar perceptual layers. My partner needs to do a better job of washing the dishes. Right? So if you finally get your partner to finally wash the dishes, you go, that's not good enough. That's going to cause problems for you. All right? My partner does not talk to me enough. My partner works too much. My partner wants me to make more money. My partner wants me to do more housework. My partner expects me to have dinner ready after work. My partner must agree with me all the time. And finally, I want others to be envious of my relationship. Okay, so these are just examples. So you can think about, in your relationship, what sneaky evaluative perceptual layers have suddenly appeared for you. Okay, it's time to challenge those. So let's talk about how do you go about challenging it. Okay, so you now take the perceptual layer, you keep on creating more sub-layers that form this bigger idea. And then you challenge that, and you keep trying to break it down until you get down to the little nitty-gritty experiences in life that you've had. And it becomes very, very clear to you where it comes from. Because we mentioned many sources like internet, from your parents, from your family, et cetera, et cetera. You need to figure out where it comes from. Right? And then I'm trying to understand, how did that help you, or why did it create this evaluative perceptual layer? So when you challenge it like that, then you say, oh, because of all this is how I came about it. Is it still relevant today? Okay, so you need to derive at this one question. Is it really still relevant? Is it really important that person washes the dishes every single day? Right? Or am I going to continue getting upset because I can't be convinced of it? That person must, no matter what, my partner must wash the dishes. Okay? They must vacuum the house once a month, whatever it's going to be. As long as you hold on to this idea, you will continue to cause suffering for yourself. And you'll cause suffering for your partner as well. And then you're going to have this separation. The resentment and separation gets bigger and bigger. Right? This is how things happen. Now, if you really can't do it, and the answer is still no, then you need to now reflect upon the fact that you have this stubborn layer, okay, that you've created. It's so deeply embedded that maybe it's related to an emotion. Okay? So, or it could be related to your subconscious. But that's out of the scope of today, because I want to take the time, just like as I did today with perceptual belief holes, I want to take the time to talk about holes created out of emotions and holes created out of your subconscious. When you go through the next 2 workshops, everything will be very, very clear for you, okay, on the main causes of suffering, and more importantly, the delay of your spiritual journey. I want you to also consider thinking about outside of this example of relationship. The reason I chose it is because it is, again, a topic of great interest and relevance to people today. How to go about having this great relationship, or a relationship that will last, okay, and not break up like many people that we see today. If we apply this to other ideas, then here are some other examples of perceptual layers that probably will cause suffering to some extent for many people, maybe even great suffering. Okay, so here it is. Working for a particular company is good or bad. Okay? I'm just going to put it out there. There is a job where you dive into the sewer, all right, to clean the sewer motors. Okay? You may think it's such a terrible job, okay, but it's just a job. Okay? It makes you money. Actually, it makes really good money. Okay? But it's a job. So, here are some other examples. Okay, a particular martial art is better than another. If I went out in public and I said Shaolin Kung Fu is the best in the world, do you know people are going to show up in my door wanting to challenge me to a fight? Right? That's what happened to Bruce Lee. I'm the best martial artist in the world. Everybody wants to challenge him. What did that get to him? All right? It caused him great suffering, a lot of suffering. Okay, if you don't know much about Bruce Lee, you look up one of those history documentaries, then you understand where that his suffering comes from. And then some more common examples, like racism. A particular human race is good or bad. Okay? Easy ones. Okay? A particular sports team is good or bad. You know, people I see fighting all the time. It's just because they're like, oh, the Leafs are better than the Montreal Canadiens. Like, you know, they just keep fighting over and over again. You know, people actually get serious. Bar fights actually happen. I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it happen. I am a good person. I'm an honest person again. I'm an unselfish person. Abortion is good or bad. Being wealthy is good or bad. Having power is good or bad. Vaccines are good or bad. Okay, that is one of great contention since COVID. Okay, animals have emotions. Some people believe they do. Some people don't believe that they do. Okay. The idea that we are destroying our planet, that animal extinction is bad, that everyone wants happiness, okay? That pollution is bad, okay? A particular political party is good or bad. These are very abstract ideas, and yet we probably have many of these. And some of them are very, very stubborn. We believe in it. Maybe we're very emotionally attached to some of these ideas. Where do they come from? Okay, it is time to challenge them. And now you have the basic idea, at least, of how to break through these illusions of our perceptual belief, or perceptual belief holes. It's 9 o'clock. I do have to stop for today, but I will end up with my, what I call the Shaolin Chan-Dao perspective. The ownership, the my perceptual layer, is the root cause of suffering. Challenging this perceptual layer at every moment of our lives is required to discover peace and happiness. That's my end of today's workshop. 阿弥陀佛. Have a wonderful evening. I will stay behind for questions for the next 10 minutes.